Greetings to all. I am Ekta, and today I am a moderator for Thesis Club. Welcome you to another session of Friday Waters. The idea of Friday Waters is to wet the Friday with fun-filled and yet fruitful activities for the future generations. Friday Waters has water talkies, book reading, thesis club, and water arts. Focus of Water Thesis Club is on bringing the student scholars who have done or are doing thesis Elias research on water matters to the session in order to discuss with them making of the thesis, research, and the issues around the subject covered. I am joined by Dr. Mansee Bal Bhargava as a discussant for the session. For today's session, we have young scholar Kabindra Sharma to share his thesis on depleting water sources and
non-traditional
security threats. So welcome, Kabindra. Kabindra Sharma is a PhD scholar in the Department of Peace and Conflict Studies and Management at Sikkim University and holds an MPhil from the same department. He completed his postgraduate studies in international relations from Pondicherry University. Kabindra's research revolves around issues of security development and geopolitics of South Asia. Welcome again, Kabindra. May I now invite Mansee to take the session further with her. Welcome,
Mansee. Yeah. Thanks, Ekta. Thank you so much for the start of the session. And I think I will speak further once I hear from Kabindra. So thank you, Kabindra, for reaching out. And interestingly, he reaches out through my PhD supervisor to me. Huh? So we have a very interesting connection, because he wants to go to Netherlands to work with my PhD supervisor. So we are trying to find out a way. And I thought it's a good idea to really have him here and present his work so that we know how we can develop this, collaboration between my professors and his professors at Sikkim University. So thank you so much, Kabindra. And over to you. Maybe I have my questions reserved. I will ask you. And we also have aspiring PhD candidates who will also ask you questions once your presentation is over. So over to you, Kabindra.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am.
Yes, visible. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so good evening, everyone. This is Kabindra Sharma. I'm a PhD scholar from Sikkim University. At the very outset, I'm thankful to the organizers for giving me opportunity to present my work. I would like to start by saying, like, my work is at very initial stage, so I'm still working on my secondary data. So I don't know how far it would be like helpful to the upcoming researcher, because I'm still not visiting the field, though I have conducted a few pilot surveys to my field, but still I'm in the process of developing my research in the initial stage. So on the basis of that, what I have gained and what I have learned over the last few months of my research in the desk that I'll try to share with you. The picture that I have given in the this first slide is not only the picture that shows the scenic beauty or the view of the mountain, but it also carries the message. The message is very special. The message from employment to unemployment. The message it carries the farmer being from farmer to the bonded labor, of message of farmer being a producer to the consumer. So on the left side, you can see the springs. That is a source of water that supplies water to the hundreds and millions of people across India, because the Indian Himalayan region is the source of water through which the 75 million people of Indian subcontinent gets the water. But slowing, the things are changing, the picture are changing, and as a result, the springs are drying, and they're drying at very rapid rates. So this my research basically focuses on the how these water resources are depleting, and how this resource depletion is bringing change in the society. And that is bringing change in the society in the form of the economic insecurity, health insecurity, and the employment insecurity that's causing by this kind of depletion. So this picture shows the on the left side, as I said, like the depleted water resources. This was taken in the month of March. By this time, there's no water in the spring. Normally, the stories that goes like from the people responding from the villagers, they say like 10 years back or 20 years back, they used to have full water during this month of time. But what happened at present is there's no water. So what's happening is like on the right, you can see there's a barren land. That used to be the land where they used to grow the tomatoes at this season, tomatoes, and the potato, window potato they used to grow. But now, as they don't have the supply of water, there is no cultivation in the land. So what that has made, that has resulted into the unemployment, high rate of unemployment in the villages, of this eastern Himalaya. Then what is has further made the labor farmers are becoming the bonded laborers. So these are the like things that's happening in the Himalayan region, in the mountain and city region. So that's the statement problem that I should say. Like that's the reason that I have decided. As I come from the same region, I have seen and I felt what the things are being changed over the years. So that's the reason that I have decided to work on this work. So to start with the emergence of water from the natural sciences, like in late 1980s. Initially, the water was seen from the prison of sciences, no? Like we were more interested, like the researchers were more interested uh, to understand the what were the physical characteristics of water, like physical characteristics in the turbidity, the color, or the temperature, or the taste of water, or the chemical characteristics of water, that is like the suspended particles, pH value, the hardness, the dissolved oxygens, that we're more interested to know. Then other aspect also was the biological composition of water, whether it's a bacteria is there, or the protozoa is there, or viruses are there. But slowly in 1980s, as the Cold War came to it's like started slow down, as the international relation as started things started to change, and with the work of the United Nations Development Program, where the human security issues also started to gain the prominence. The social scientists also started to analyze the issues related in the water, how the social issues are associated with water, how the political issues are associated with water. So with that, slowly this water, which was seen as the scientific thing, we started to move to the domain of social scientists, and they started with the research. So that's how the journey began, and now it has gained a lot, and now a lot of research are being carried out on this domain. So that is how it started. Though in traditionally we see water as the renewable resources, as it is available everywhere, as 70% of the earth is covered with water. But the matter of the fact is, out of 70%, only 1% is available in the form of lake or the rivers, which is available for the human consumption. Remaining 90% of the water is not available for human consumption. So that has to be understood by all the human beings, because we think water is 70%, so we can use water as much as we can, but things are coming, the days are coming very close, like we will have water wars in near future. So talking about my region, the Eastern Himalaya, where I come from, where my research is based on, it's a mountain, in India, it's dependent on the mountain as the springs, and it supplies water not only to the region, it's Eastern Himalaya, but rather it supplies water to the entire Indian subcontinent. The Ganges, the Brahmaputra, the Tista, it has its origin from the Himalayas, from the glaciers. That's how the water originates. But people in the downside, or in the like mainland India, what they assume is water is coming from the river. But we have to understand the river also has its origin. So once that origin start depleting, then the problem will also come to the main Indian subcontinent. So that is one of the major issues that's happening nowadays. Talking about the how this concept developed, initially, from as I come from the background of international relations, so the idea of this what I'm doing today started from the political science that developed in 1880s. That was the initial phase when the all these Plato, Aristotle, and all these works of these people started to gain prominence. They talk about the ideal state, they talk about the liberalism, how the state should be, what state should do, and what should not do. Then when that became redundant in the sense of the other ideas got developed, like in 1919 of 1920s, there came the idea of international relations, where there was understanding you have to more focus on the relations between the states or the nations, because that time, that was the period after the First World War, and that time there was a need to understand the relationship between one country to another, and how the dynamic changes all over the world. So slowly, when that also became redundant, then came the security studies, because at last what they realized was it's all because of security. It's because of the security of the nations. They are more concerned to understand the other countries' relations. So then they came the domain of security studies in 1920s. So when the security studies came, there was the understanding that security is only from the war or the bombs or the guns. That's only the idea that were discussed or the research were carried out. But slowly in 1930s, that gained prominence. That was the time where the nuclear weapons were developed. That was the time where the nuclear weapons were used in Japan or Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So that was the period when all were talking about the hard security. What is hard security in the terms of physical violence? One country is killing another country by the conventional war or the non-conventional war. So that was the main idea behind all the researchers or academicians or the politicians or statesmen. But slowly, as I said, in 1990s, the journey began with the work of Barry Bush and Richard Ullman, who started to argue there is more thing than the hard security. There's more than the physical violence that comes from the war, that comes from the bullet, that comes from the bomb. We have to focus more on other aspect of the life that is also threatening the individual's security. So then the whole debate started to come, like the widening of the security domain or the security studies, and then the work of the United Nations Development Program 1994, or Amartya Sen or the Mahbub ul Haq, who started and worked tremendously to widen this whole debate, to bring the non-traditional security issues, which were the issues of health, which were the issues of economic security, which were the issues of the employment security. So these were the things, how things have panned out. And at present now, non-traditional issues has seen the peak time when the pandemic came. That is one of the domain of non-traditional security, like the pandemic, the COVID-19, that no one had thought like things would be like that. So now I think with the pandemic days on, we have realized how this non-traditional security threat is important. So within that domain only comes the water security, and that is also playing important role in the day-to-day life of human being. This is the just I'm trying to show the wave of after 1945, how the at the first wave, increasing relevance of deterrence. There was a feeling of deterring the other powers by means of nuclear weapons, so that I have nuclear weapons, so no one else will dare to attack me. That was the thinking that time at the first wave. Second wave, that also started to like deviate from the main deterrence theory. Then we started to have zero-sum game or the strategic alliances or the coalitions to protect your country. And after that, again, the third wave, we started to focus on the geopolitical context. Okay, so these were the three waves that were the traditional understanding we depended on for security of the nations. But as we moved towards the fourth wave, we started to focus on the non-traditional security. As I said, like with the decline of the Cold War and disintegration of the Soviet Union, the emphasis was changed, the priorities were changed, and the focus was changed. As a result, we started thinking about the other aspect or other non-traditional issues that became prominent during that time. So we talk about the non-traditional security issues. So how the issues become securitized, okay? How the issues you have in hand that transfers from the ordinary thing to the important thing. At present, whatever things it may be, you understand, whatever thing may be has to be politicized. If it's not politicized, then it has no value, because at the end, it's the politicians who make the decision. Wherever you go to UN, you go to the ADP, you go to the whatever organizations, whatever forums you go, it is at the end, politicians make a decision because they have the power. So whenever the issue is at hand, first thing you have to do is you have to try to make it politicized. Once the issue gets politicized, then it comes into the manifesto, electoral manifesto of the political parties. Then it goes to the when the party goes to the power, then it becomes in part of the policy decision, and that's how the things are getting securitized. In context of water also, initially water was nowhere, but slowly started to getting into the political manifesto of the political parties. then started to get into policy decision. At present, if you talk of Indian context also, we have Jal Jeevan Mission, which promises to give water by 2024 to every household. We have in the urban areas, we have Amrit Mission, which promises to give water to every household by 2024. This is all what is all about securitization. So this theory is beautiful theory which talks about the securitization, how the things are changing and how we have to make things happen with the help of securitization model. So this is insecurities of human and the root causes. So how the water can be linked. I have tried to link the relationship between the water and the this of the parameters that were given by the UNDP report of 1994. The things I have marked in red, that these are the things that happen when there is a water insecurity. There is a lack of economic opportunities. We have to understand India is agrarian society. India still have the 20% of its economy from the GDP from the agriculture. So 27% of GDP comes from the agriculture. That means it provides ample employment opportunities. The day there is a problem of water, then there will be problem of unemployment, there will be deep-rooted poverty. And the next thing is, again, if there's a water insecurity, there will be high inflation and famine and hunger, because we need water for agriculture. So if there is no water, then there will be high inflation, there will be famine, there will be drought, there will be hunger. So there another thing is poor sanitation. For sanitation also we need water. Okay, so if there's no water, then there will be sanitation, there will be health issues. Then another thing is depletion of natural resources, environmental degradation. So these are the issues, that are related with the insecurity of water or the unavailability of water. There is a civil strife of crime. There is a massive human rights violation and political repression. When it was prepared in 1994, that time people might have thought this is just for paper only. It might not happen in reality. But if you go to the Sudan, the Fur, if you go to the South India, there's a Kaveri water dispute where the people are dying because of the water. In 2016, when I was doing my master's in Pondicherry University, I saw myself where people are fighting for water. I didn't know that's happening, but that was the reality. So there were hundreds of people that were like beaten. There were hundreds of cars that were damaged, hundreds of properties that were damaged, and there are reports that like more than 6 people were killed during that protest. So civil strife, the human rights violation is a reality because of the unavailability of water or the water-related conflict. So this is the chart I have made, I have prepared, which shows the conflict that is induced by the resource depletion or the water resource depletion that has taken place throughout the world. So you can see Afghanistan, Angola, Burma, Cambodia, Colombia, Nepal, Sudan. These all countries are having conflict because of the resources. So resources plays important role, as Bandana Shiva in her work has categorically discussed how the resource conflict between Israel and Palestine was later transformed into later something else. Initially, the conflict was for the land resources. The conflict we had between the Israel and the Palestine is for the land. But at present, no one talks of the land because the things have gone out of their like hand. So, but initially the conflict started because of the resources. So we have to understand resources plays important role in having conflict. This is one of the flowchart that I have prepared. How the conflict happened in the Philippines, population growth that led to the agricultural land scarcity, migration to fragile lands, then deforestation and soil, then decrease in agriculture, then increased poverty that resulted into mobilization of farmers and conflict against the government that resulted in the protests against the government, and that led to massive white conflict in the Philippines. So this is one of the important aspect which gives us understanding how things are changing and how what we are at present, because this is one of the important data which shows like fresh water use per year between 1901 and 2014. So at in 1901, there was, like, you can see the rise, and the rise shows that there is the 494% rise in the use of water in last 121 years, my pardon. So in 121 years, we have seen 494% of relative change and six-fold increase in the total water use. Okay, so this shows like how we are increasing our day by day water consumption. We have limited water resources, but that also is being used massively as the population grows, as the country progresses in the path of development. So, international IEA in 2014 published one report which says that which claims the carbon emission and the resource utilization has correlation between each other. Carbon emission and resource utilization has like correlation between each other. The higher the carbon emission, higher the resource utilization. So what has happened is over the years is between 1992 and 2007, top fastest growing economies are using the highest per capita water. So you can see in the orange, India is topping. It's going at very fast, high rate. Its development is also going at very high rate. No, similarly, US is declining because its economy is going down, whereas China is rising up. So you can see the rise of economy, the growth, the development also has its consequence on the resources. So water resources utilization goes up with the development or the growth. So this is also important thing we have to understand. So what is happening? As we are progressing, we are heading towards the development, or we are going towards the growth, there comes the cost we are paying. The cost we are not paying, but the nature is paying the cost. The natural resources are depleting. Similarly, the renewable water resources is also paying this cost. So at 1950, an individual per capita water availability was around 6,000 liter per person, but that has gone down at present. So you can see from the my pardon is and it was 14,000 liter per person water availability in 1950s, but now it is around 5,058 liter per person. So now you can imagine after 100 years it will go to 2,000. So then time will come when there is no water available for each individual. So this picture is also shows the future we are heading towards. In the recent study conducted by NASA, data of 16 years between 2002 and 16 was analyzed to understand the status of water across the globe. The finding of the study has shown sharp decline in water resources across the world, largely induced by the climate change and anthropogenic activities. With this regard, there was one study conducted by NASA. You know, NASA has conducted one like study that has found like there has been this sharp decline, massive decline in the water availability. So that gives an understanding, because it's very difficult to quantify the water. The total availability of water to quantify to one figure is very difficult. But we can understand from the data of per capita availability, you know, from the data of NASA, that water is depleting, and the future we are heading towards is very dangerous. One example I would like to cite, like UNEP study has found that for almost 15 years, Sudan has been in armed struggle, and the most important factor for the armed struggle is a drought, as the soaring population is facing because of the drought, as there's no water is not available, there's no cultivation, there's no farming, which has resulted into civil strife, and there's more than 3 lakh fatalities, and 2 million people has been displaced since 2003. And similarly in Bolivia, what happened was the private government of Bolivia, what they did was they privatized the water. You know, the bottled water now cost 1 liter water cost 20 rupees. Similarly, in Bolivia, government what they did, they privatized the water. What happened? That resulted in the increase of 50% high. That saw the 50% hike in the water. So that had the tremendous influence in the economic security of an individual, because they were earning $60 per month, but they have to pay $15 for their water bill. So that hampered their economic security as well. So growing importance of water depletion can be also understood with the help of the academic literature that is being published. So there you can see in 1990s there was like around 5,500 literature were published per year that were discussing on the water depletion. When it comes to 2020, there are more than 45,000 literatures that are being published, or academicians are showing interest, because when the academician shows interest, then there is a problem. So this water depletion is happening, there is a conflict is there related to water. That's why researchers, the academicians are showing interest. One of the interesting thing that has happened in recent years in India, that we can also understand how the water, the small thing that we used to think earlier, has become the source of conflict. From 2017 onwards, National Crime Records Bureau of India has started to give the separate section which shows the cases reported under water dispute. That is amazing fact that I came across myself. Now we have water dispute data recorded. And I spoke to, yesterday I was like having one meeting with one of the police officer in Darjeeling. Then he told me, like, in Darjeeling, we haven't started that, but the state of Maharashtra, Bihar, and Andhra Pradesh has the highest rate recorded. And the study shows that is massively underreported. So that means, like, things have started to change, and that has started to come at your door, and there's every day this case is being recorded, and that shows how the like water has become the serious problem to India's security. This picture is from my pilot survey to field, that shows the old lady on the right, shows the pipe with the water, and they are pleading for water. There's no water. So as I were having discussion with the villagers, where they are hopeful that by 2024, this is of last year, March 2022, and they were hopeful by June 2024, they have been promised to have a water with every household. But they are hopeful, but the situation is very, very difficult, because you can have a tap, but there's no water. What you will do in the hilly regions, you cannot have a water by digging a soil. You have to have a water from the natural resources or the natural springs. What's happening nowadays is that in natural spring itself, water is depleting and discharge volume is decreasing at very high rate. So the question comes is how the water will be supplied to these people. So that is important questions that we have to find, and I'm also trying to find through my field survey and my meetings with the different stakeholders that I'll be conducting in my future field survey. So that is one of the important questions that I have to understand, is how the water will be supplied if natural springs will be depleted, as we cannot have another source of water. So this is the barren land that has the message I told you before, carries like how this region used to be the self-sufficient in agriculture produce in past 10 years ago, but at present they don't have anything in their land, and they have to buy themselves and feed themselves. So that tells the story. So this is just my initial work that I have been doing. So this is just I would like to conclude here, and I hope I'll receive some suggestions that I can carry it forward to make this work more good. That would eventually make a good publication at last. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kabindra. Thanks a lot for this wonderful presentation. And I hope the students also realized that water security and water is not limited to my municipal water connection, and also not limited to me getting water and the river and the lakes being polluted just nearby. You really opened the Pandora box of talking about linking water security to international conflicts, where you are not only talking about transboundary water relationships between the states as well. You mentioned with the Kaveri case, which we are facing for a long time. Narmada itself is a transboundary water conflict we are facing for a long time. But you also brought in the international examples And you really portrayed the conflict in a very, very nice way, and linking it with how resource security eventually leads to nations fighting over, something which becomes a politicization of the resource itself. And at some point in time, the resource goes in the background and the politics and the war becomes at the foreground, giving very beautifully the example of Israel and Palestine. At the onset, I really want you to connect you to two major gurus of the world who work on international conflict and peace building. And of course, I'm going to connect them to you. They have been my mentors for some time. We have written a big book on decolonizing conflicts, security, and peace. And they are Professor Hans Gunther Baruch and Professor Ursula Oswald. I'm sure you have referred their work. So Ursula is based in Mexico and Hans is based in Germany. So I'm really looking forward to directly connecting you to them, because I think on one hand, you really looked at the conflict very beautifully and linking it with the water security and other resource security for that matter, beautifully talking about the land security, which resulted in war. And now how Sudan eventually ended up becoming a war led area with its drought as a beginning of it. I mean, So these are very important examples. And if we look around India, we also have these waterborne, I will say, insecurities or transboundary insecurities, whether it is with India, Bangladesh, whether it is Nepal and India, whether it is, India and Pakistan. What I was really interested that if you may come across, but I do understand that you are using the securitization model because our group of peace scholars in the world, we have been talking about that there have been many, many water conflicts. At this point in time, we have more than 3,000 water conflicts going around in the world. But at the same time, there are scholars who are working on peace ecology, where people have managed, where countries have managed to resolve their conflicts using resource as a tool, and a very classic example where we sit in as, considered as one of the sacred kind of a treaty which we have in the world, which is Indus Water Treaty between India and Pakistan. And it is used all over the world as an example of how peace can be maintained using resource as a security tool, So what is interesting for me to see this whole spectrum of work, where you are talking about conflict here, and we also have the other end of working on peace, where they both kind of scholars are using the same resource to exemplify the work, So that's very interesting for me from your presentation. I am going to again come up with the fact that you really tell very well how resource security came into picture in the international arena or between the nations, where earlier the security was more about hard security, where war was kind of seen. And within 100 years, actually, we have shifted slowly into resource insecurity and resource security and fighting over like land and water. Land was always fought, but water was not really at the center of conflict for that matter. Another thing which is a very interesting pick for me is that how politicization eventually leaves the resource behind, and then everything becomes a matter of politics, and then the resource is forgotten, I mean, that's very important. And we also see that in India, Pakistan. People, when they talk about India, Pakistan, there's a lot of garma garmi, We don't realize that we are sitting together on a hotbed of Indus water, which is the source of peace between both the countries. And it's like a kind of a Bible for both the countries to survive for each other, to sustain each other. So I mean, that's interesting. I will see whether towards the end of your research you may come up with some kind of peace thing. But of course, conflicts are important to study. You do mention how rich countries who are exploiting more of resources are also actually initiators of many conflicts for that matter. I mean, you mention it in a different way, that they are more consuming water and there are more stress between those countries and all. You do mention the relationship between carbon emission and resource utilization. I'm saying all this because we have a lot of aspiring PhD scholars here in our participation today. They must know how a literature review is conducted. So your literature review to me was very well organized in terms of time, that you tell how, when did resource security actually became a subject of study in the scientific arena. You also did show the bibliographical study where you showed how when a problem becomes extreme, science also becomes very interested in the problem, from 5,000 articles on water to 45,000 articles on water. That was very interesting graph for me to look at. And this is how literature review should be conducted. So I'm not really concerned where you are in your study, but now I have some suggestions for you because I know you are going to field. I'm also aware that you are interested to take on your visiting scholarship where you can harness this work much better. So some of my questions for you are here, and then I will request all young participants to even ask naive questions. How did you carry out the study or something like this? I'm sure you're going to answer. So when you talk about resource as a conflict, did you come across scholars who have really studied both conflict as well as peace? Have you come across those kind of literature? And if you have, how do you really extract what you require? How do you leave aside the peace and get the conflict out of the literature?
No, thank you so much, ma'am, for your wonderful suggestions and your observations you have made in the short period of time. Talking about the water as a piece, water always has been holy. In the Hindu text or the Hindu spiritual understanding, we see water as a holy uh, component. Even in the Christian, water is very impure. Even in Islam, water is very pure. They consider it as a holy. So water has always been the piece of like a symbol or the epitome of peace. But it's because of the human activities that has been like the symbol of peace is slowly becoming the symbol of conflict. I have been referring the few research work that talks about the peace and how water has been playing role in peace building between the countries. No, the excellent example you talk about the Indian Indus Water Treaty that exists even after the conflict we have with Pakistan. We have the like a treaty that exists, so that itself shows how important role water plays and how humanitarian role it can play, and how we consider it as the part of humanity, that we don't deal water in even after having so much issues between the nations. So I will take forward the issues that you have given to me.
Yeah. My next question to you is, because you are dealing with this kind of transboundary and your pilot study is very much localized, and you do make that relationship of scale, that the conflict is not literally transboundary as international situation, but it also occurs at a local level. And you were mentioning your master's thesis when you saw the Kaveri problems at Pondicherry University. So I'm just wondering, when you are eventually going to decide your case studies and decide your field work and do your survey or whatever you are intending to do, that's also my question. What are you intending to do? Because this kind of studies require special kind of methods on the field. So maybe individual surveys may not be enough. So I'm just wondering, how will you really take a call that you are going to focus only on local issues? Are you going to stop your study of conflict and transboundary conflict examples as part of literature review, and then come straight away to the localized scale and say that, see, small water insecurities also lead to this kind of conflicts, even between mohallas, between cities and between districts and between states. And by the way, state level transboundary issues are yet not studied and not seen as a subject of interest by many scholars. I had a student 4 years ago who was studying in Vidarbha in Maharashtra, part of the basin on Nashik, trans district by the way water, and how upstream and downstream waters are really changing the whole dynamics between cropping patterns of farmers. So how will you decide upon the scale? What will be your scale of operation in terms of case study?
At the moment, For the case studies of transboundary issues, I have been like limited my research to the case studies on basis of secondary data. But my primary focus has been till now, like as I have been discussing with my supervisor, remains the field that I have decided to choose, the Darjeeling Hills. So that would be my case study at the moment, where I will collect my data with the help of household survey. Then I'll do some focus group discussion, and then I'll
Yes,
do
that will
the
be useful.
interviews. So that has been my like main methods I have used for data collection. But as I progress further, as I've discussed with you, like my plan to go abroad and have some kind of understanding, as I in chapter 4 I discussed about the water management and the water governance. So because what I have understood so far is water is the problem in India is mainly because of water management and water governance, because
Yes,
we don't have that system or the that leads to the good water management or the rainwater harvesting model. So these are that will be my focus in the next chapter. So as I progress further, I think I can decide further what can I do in this regard.
but I hope you are not going to lose upon the conflict part of it, because probably as a thesis scholar, or you may not be able to solve the problem, but holding on to the aspect of the fact that water insecurity leads to conflict at all scales, whether it is international or whether it is very localized. That will be an interesting study to really capture, because you may come across many water governance studies, many poor water management studies, but linking these two aspects are very rarely done, so that will be a catch also, and it will also depend on what kind of communities are you selecting. Maybe it's a good idea if you can look at upstream and downstream communities, and if they are having any kind of dynamic social cultural relationships, maybe they are complementing each other. We see many many times in the mountain communities. You may also refer to Elinor Ostrom's work and Ganesh Shivakoti's work. Ganesh Shivakoti has spent a lot of time working on the hills of Nepal, as well as Elinor Ostrom, where they have been talking about how upstream and downstream are complementing each other in discussing their water share, because eventually it's all about water share when we talk about the water conflicts, So if because you are in a mountain region, it will be good to really capture the vibes of who is getting how much water at what level of the mountain, and are people cooperating, or what kind of conflicts are arranging? Because if you limit yourself at a geospatial level where you are really going to only few villages, you may lose upon the conflict, and my interest will be that you really hold on to the conflict part of your study, so apart from your survey and focus group discussion, what are the other methods you are intending to apply?
Uh, like at the moment, I have been focusing on these things only. As I progress further, I'll try to look into other aspect what can be done.
Okay. And you are interested to understand the polder management system from the Netherlands, and that's where we got connected, because you will also realize the way polder management works in the Netherlands is more, it's, very, very bottom up, and it's a people-driven management, where even the ministries and the departments have to, bow down to the decisions made by the community at that level. And that's why it is very popular system of water management. And when we look at our system of bureaucracy in the country, I will be very interested how you start linking about, and how you empower local people through your proposal, that okay, they should have a voice to really tell in the bureaucracy or in the politics how the water share should be discussed. Because har ghar jal nal, whatever is there, may not be that easy in the mountain regions, as you rightly mentioned. So even if you come with a lot of learning from polder management system, you will have to really see how you decipher that knowledge at mountain regions study. And that's why I was actually suggesting you to study Japan water management more than the polder management system, because they also have this Satoma and Satayama water management system, So keep that in mind. But both these systems, if you are interested to study, they are really not much talking again about conflict. They do talk about water management, but not from the point of view that that the starting point is not that water insecurity leads to conflict, and this is where your research richness lies. So that's my word of caution to you. But maybe we see if there are young people here and also some senior members also in the participants, if they want to ask you questions or give you some suggestions or comments or wishes, we can take them from them. So over to you, to all the participants. You may unmute yourself and even ask simple questions. That's to my students. You can ask very simple questions also. You don't have to really make it complicated for yourself. Go ahead and ask questions to him. You may type also, by the way, huh? And I see you have actually closed your video, huh? It becomes useful if you have it open. Kabindra, can you please switch on your video?
Yeah.
Are there any questions from people? Especially students, you must ask. Yes, Ajit sir, please ask.
Okay. One distinct example of water management and governance is Gujarat experience.
Yes.
It directly relates to water management and governance, and the water security relates directly to the GDP of the region.
Yes.
I don't know how closely you have studied the state of Gujarat pre 2000, and post 2000.
Pre-Narmada, post-Narmada.
Pre 2000, the GDP was actually it is because of total water shortage, and women workforce. Uh, they had to take care of water at home, to water security at home. So they refrained from being in the actual workforce. And post 2000, you can say 4, 5, 6, after Modi government came in and all that, and coincidentally, things also improved. They got some rains and other things. So it started shooting up. Now it is at 2 figures. And very similarly, you would have seen in many regions that water at home makes a lot of difference for the security of the whole region. Do you have any other examples to cite for a country or a big region?
Kabindra.
Could you please repeat the question? What you want to know?
No. I want to say something about something that is saying one region has been having poor water management and poor water governance, and
the voice is breaking actually. Maybe my network problem, or the voice is breaking.
I'm asking. You have a region as an example that its water management and governance is very, very poor, and its GDP is very, very low. But certain other regions, or maybe the same region, after its water management, governance, and security has come up and done well, the GDP and the total quality of living and other things improve. I mean, some examples to cite.
Thank you for your question. I have not gone to that chapter aspect, so I'll be moving to that aspect because chapter 4 deals with the water governance and the management. But I was referring to some work like S.K. Jain, who talks about the how management is a major problem in India. So as you rightly mentioned in Gujarat, how the water management had the qualitative change that brought change in the GDP, in the employment, and the quality of life. So that as premises that I was talking about, the water management is a major problem, and that is the reason for the water insecurity in India. Conforms with your understanding as well. So as I progress further towards my research, slowly I'll try to understand.
Thank you very much.
Experience of Gujarat and try to bring in debate in my research as well.
Thanks a lot.
There have been time and again, thank you, Ajit sir, time and again this discussion that water secured is also useful or is influencing the economic development of the place, or in other words, the GDP of the place. There are direct references for it, even from the United Nations. And probably that's one of the reasons why water security is being aimed for, you know. So that having said, probably you have not covered so far in your work, but I will still stress upon you is just keep your focus on conflict, which is not studied much. So because you are talking about securitization model, and you are focusing on insecurity more than the security itself, where you can use a hypothesis that water security or insecurity leads to conflicts. The other way, what Ajit sir is saying, that water security leads to the good development of GDP, you know. But I think your area of work lies on the first part of research. So any questions from the participants? And I will encourage my young participants to really ask questions, even if how naive that is. You have to learn to do that as part of research, you know, scholarship. Anyone? Okay, so maybe on that note, I think we can thank Kabindra, and over to you, Ekta, for the same. And thank you so much, Kabindra, for the wonderful presentation. I really enjoyed your literature review today.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for giving me this opportunity. I look forward to work with you further.
Thank you. Over to you, Ekta, to do the vote of thanks. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Mansee. It's really a wonderful eye-opening session by Kabindra. So we all heard that the next war, if it will be there, then it will be on water. So we learned that how the resources are assets, and that can contribute to a lot of disputes, and it can be the instability for the whole world. So every single drop wasted at home can lead to the wars. So we must keep in mind that how to use these natural resources as per the natural rules instead of wasting these resources. So thanks, Kamindra. I hope a lot of people will be encouraged and get motivated, and they know that how resources are important and we should not waste these resources. So thank you all. Now here is the next session announcement. Please join us for the next Friday Water session on 24th at 5 p.m. on what please also join us next Wednesday for water on 22nd February at 5 p.m. Join us on every third Friday for the water thesis sessions. So, and encourage, meet the new scholars and know about their research. I hope these sessions will help us all to know more about water and contribute to the water conservation and conserving our resources. Thank you all. Thank you for the wonderful session today, Kabindra. And thanks to all the wonderful audiences. Thank you.
Thank
See
you
you
so
all
much.
for the
so
next
much.
session.
Thank you. Bye.